here. Welcome to our ELLICSR kitchen. We have an exciting community connections, cooking and nutrition class for you today. Really exciting topic. This was something that Daniela brought forward that I'm super interested in. So I'm really excited to hear about not only today's topic, but research and put together a few interesting recipes to pair with your feed. So let's get started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Capone,
Yeah,
chef.
we'll do that. Yeah. My name's Jeremy. I feel like I know everyone here, but yes, if you're watching at home, my name is Jeremy. Welcome everyone to our nutrition class and the amazing Daniela.
There we go. Hello, hello. So I'm getting used to being here in person because I was at home for the longest time. So anyway, yes, today we are exploring blue zones. And they're regions of the world that are considered to have the healthiest people and the people who live the longest. So we thought it would be fun, since there's so much about it in the news. There's a documentary about it on Netflix. We were just talking about that here. A couple of best-selling books on it. We thought it would be fun to take a look at how the people in the blue zones live, how they eat, what they eat, if they're active or not, and compare it to the message we get for cancer risk reduction, right? So what the American Institute for Cancer Research says, and also what Health Canada says in Canada's Food Guide to Healthy Eating. So before we start, I have a question for the class, and people can, chat. In the chat, they can respond in the chat. Do you know why the blue zones are blue? No.
Little trivia today, all right.
Yeah, a little trivia. Okay. I found this fascinating because I thought there was a lot of science behind it, and I'm like, okay, why are they blue? Is it the food or whatever? No science related to it. Dan Buettner is the journalist who worked with the National Geographic and the National Institute for Aging to study the habits of people in the blue zones. And basically he and his team, this is so kind of a letdown, used a blue pen to circle the zones on the map. Ended up calling it the blue zones. Yeah, that was it. And do you know, can you name any of the blue zones? You can just shout it out. Costa Rica, yeah.
Italy?
Yeah. Sardinia, Italy. Greece, yeah. Vicaria, Greece.
It's 3.
Costa Rica, Greece, Italy. 2 more.
1 is in our continent.
Oh.
We don't cheat.
Yeah. Not Canada.
In California, it's on the tip of my tongue.
I know, it kind of rolls on the tongue a little bit. Loma Linda.
Yes.
Loma Linda, California is one of them.
Yes.
Yes. And then the other one is not our continent.
No.
It's in
A little further away.
Asia. Is it in
Yes.
Asia?
Yes.
Is it Japan?
It's in Japan.
Japan, Okinawa, Japan.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. So before we get into the recipes, I do have to say that with the popularity of the blue zones, there also comes criticism. And the criticism is that it's not evidence-based. And there are some questions about the validity of the ages of the people and whether they really are over 100. But even so, we thought it would be fun to tour the blue zones and look at the recipes that Jeremy put together, inspired by the blue zones. And shall we get started?
Let's get started.
Let's get started.
We had guesses coming in on the chat as well.
Yeah?
Yeah, so we had Okinawa, Japan from Sarah, so yes.
I almost drank this. This isn't my water.
That's not your water?
That's not-
No,
Okay, that would not be good. I mean, it would be
it would
good,
be
but...
very tasty, but different type of beverage.
Okay, so first recipe. So our first recipe is the sabuzzo. And it's a Sardinian herb and bean soup. So we're starting our tour of the blue zones in Sardinia. And the blue zone way of eating is predominantly plant foods, which aligns with the recommendations from Health Canada and the American Institute for Cancer Research. And they recommend eating more plant foods, less animal foods, to support our health and reduce cancer risk. The premier protein choice in the blue zone are legumes, also called pulses, also called dried peas and beans and lentils. And the featured protein in this simple soup is broad beans, also known as fava beans. And they're packed with protein, fiber, and health protective compounds, one of which is called polyphenols. I'll turn it over to Jeremy now for the recipe.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so all of these dishes that we're going to be making today, we try to get inspired by some of these Blue Zone locations. So they're definitely not authentic, because I know that you don't want to, especially for this one, anger all the Sardinian nonas out there. So we take sort of inspiration. We're going to make a few little changes, but with this soup, the sabutsu means sort of lots of herbs. So it's a very herbaceous dish, and we're going to use some bitter greens too. So lots of greens, lots of herbs, very flavorful. But it's also using ingredients that, like beans, which you can use canned beans. You're using some aromatics. You can use some onion and garlic, and then almost like this little pasta. So it's a very sort of satiating dish as well. So it's like that has that comfort feel to it. So I think it's perfect for the time of year, even though this is more, I would say more of like a spring soup because of all the herbs.
Yeah.
I think this is perfect for the cooler months as well. Okay, so we're gonna get started with some of those aromatics. We have it's a little bit of chopped up onion. I have some garlic that I just crushed with the side of my knife. One thing I noticed with the garlic, and sometimes you may notice this at home too, is sometimes there's a little sprout, a little green sprout in the middle. This is optional. It can make your dish a little bit bitter, slightly bitter. But some people, they don't notice it, but removing it, just that little sprout, so you sort of split it, and a little bit closer. There we go. So you can see that little green sprout, and then if you split it, then you can just remove it easily. So sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't, but I like to remove it. And then garlic in, so I have a little bit of olive oil in my pot, medium heat, a little bit of onion, any onion, just roughly chopped. Add that as well. Any other aromatics you want to add, go for it. One of my favorites, and this for me reminds me of the holidays and winter, is fennel. Has anyone used fennel before? Okay, so I've never used it before. It has this sort of mild licorice flavor to it. Texturally, very similar to celery, so it's going to have that crunch. But it has this really, really nice flavor to it. So what you usually do, now this is like just sort of half of the fennel. It's usually the whole bulb, and you have these long stems on top. We remove these stems. These are very fibrous. You don't want to be chewing on these. You can save this for stock, for your broths. This is absolutely delicious. We'll dunk it in there for now. And then for the fennel itself, we're just going to give it a rough dice. Now the fennel is layered like an onion, which is helpful because a lot of that work is already done for me. So instead of doing a cross cut like you might see commonly with an onion, which I think, unless you're very, very comfortable with your knife, it can be a dangerous move because you're pushing the blade towards your hand. It's already layered, so I really just have to go cut against those layers, okay? So I'm gonna make my cuts against the layers, and then I'll cross that so that I get my dice. And because, again, it's layered like an onion, you'll get a nice dice out of the fennel. And we're good to go. Add this to, actually, my favorite tools. Let's see if I have that.
Favorite tools? Well, we know that.
Yeah, palette knife.
Black Friday.
So another thing, because we were talking about knife safety, pushing again, scooping. We use our knife all the time, right? We use it to scoop. We use it for all these things. Again, anytime you can avoid pushing your knife towards your hand, I think is a good idea. Plus, dragging it across the cutting board will dull your knife out a bit. These bench scrapers, you can get these at like most culinary stores. You can get them online as well. They're great for picking up your prep. scooping it into your pot or wherever it needs to go. So yeah, Christmas. Did you say Christmas gift?
Christmas gift, Black Friday gift.
Yeah, so
Also,
good.
I think I've been hanging around Jeremy too long because I believe I dreamed last night that I was looking at my knife and it was crooked. Jeremy would not have been happy about that.
Yeah, no.
Dreaming about a knife. That's
Yeah. All right. So all your aromatics inside your pot. We got some fennel, onion, garlic, and we're just going to soften this a little bit, like 3-4 minutes. Nothing too complicated. While that softens, I'll throw it back to you.
Sure. So beans and greens, they're actually my favorite too. And the great thing is that when you combine the beans and greens, the beans are giving you some great plant protein, and the broad beans, and a half cup of broad beans or fava beans, you get about 7 grams of protein, which is pretty good, similar to what's in an egg, and about 5 grams of fiber. You also get about 20% of your body's needs for folate and manganese. And folate is great for improving our blood cells, and manganese plays a role in our bone health. But it also contains iron, and we've talked about this before a little bit, that the plant form of iron is not absorbed as easily by our body, but it's a power couple, it's one of our power couples. But when you combine it with vegetables or fruit that are rich in vitamin C, so the leafy greens that we have here, the fennel, it actually improves the absorption of the iron from the beans. So it's one of our favorite power couples, and so I love that combination of beans and greens. If you don't have greens, I guess, like other vegetables that are high in vitamin C, it could be tomatoes, could be peppers, any of those. But yeah, I'll stop there.
Love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so give it a few minutes, your aromatics, just to soften up a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and add one of the traditional ingredients for this soup, which is called fragola. Fragola is almost like a little pearl pasta, which is very hard to find here. I went to a few grocery stores, couldn't find it. Probably have to go to some specialty stores here, but a really good substitute would be this pearl couscous. Sometimes you'll see labeled as Israeli couscous. It's just like a bigger sort of pasta grain. Has this really nice sort of soft texture to it. So this is what's traditionally used. Now you can use other things as well. I mean, you can, use whole grain, you can use barley, you can use spelt. You can throw that in there. Completely up to you. But traditionally, it would be sort of this small pearl pasta. So we're going to add that now.
And just some trivia, I had to look up fregola. Even though I have Italian background, I had no idea what fregola was. And it's actually from the Latin, so the word comes from the Latin word ferculum, which means crumb. So basically just small bits of pasta, nothing major. I know, nothing really earth-shattering.
All right, we're going to put the fregola in, or the pearl couscous, just to toast up a little bit, and then we can go ahead and add our beans. Like Daniela mentioned, we're using the broad beans, so those are these really big beans. These are fun. There's so much fun in the soup because you have this really nice big bite. You can use any beans that you want in this as well. We are using a very convenient, easy canned bean because it's drain and rinse, and you can use it. If you do want to use a dried bean, you can do that as well. Cook it though in advance. So you will need to soak that overnight. Cook it for an hour, 2 hours until tender, and then it's ready to use. The idea is we want to just be quick with this soup.
Yeah.
Don't fuss too much.
And also, if you have any GI distress with beans, it's good to, if they're dry, discard the water, replace the water. Even with the canned beans, discard the water that contains the indigestible starch, and that'll make it easier for your digestion.
Beautiful. Okay, so that's what we have here, and then we're going to add our liquid. We have a veg broth, you can have a chicken broth, just add water, use whatever you have.
We can already smell, I was going to say the studio, but it's a kitchen. We can already smell it. Can you
Studio?
smell it at the back there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring it up to a boil, and then once it starts boiling, we will reduce the heat to low, cover, and simmer. And it's really just until that fragola or pearled couscous is cooked. And it doesn't take long, it's like 10 minutes, and you're good to go. Okay? Once we're at that point, we have one done, our big pot.
For us, right? Yeah. Oh, of course.
We'll do a little swap.
I don't want to be teasing the people at home.
Yeah.
It's a little pot.
All right, so we have the broth, and you could probably smell it, but all the beans, that sort of pearled couscous is sort of plumped up a little bit, and then the aromatics from the fennel and the onion and the garlic are giving it. And what happens too is as it slowly cooks, some of the starch from the couscous is going to release to thicken it up a little bit, and some starch from the beans as well. So again, it's this idea of like it's like a heartier soup, right? And then right at the end, right before serving, we're gonna add our greens and a really, really big handful of herbs. Camera shot too. There you go. Get it all on. Any herbs?
That was my question. Yeah.
So I have, from the research that I have done, traditionally they would use what they had access to. I've seen tarragon mostly and parsley mostly, but it's probably whatever's growing in the backyard that tends to be, what goes into the soup. So I have parsley and tarragon in here, but you can use any handful of herbs. And then we're using some dandelion. So these are bitter greens. You can use arugula as well, which I've seen commonly used. But any sort of, or escarole. Escarole is probably another one that you would probably see used in this recipe. Anything that has a little bit of a bite. So that arugula is going to have a pepperiness to it. The dandelion is going to have a little bit of that bitterness to it. So it's going to play well with the sweetness from our aromatics.
Great.
I'm going to go ahead
Yeah,
and
go ahead and add that in.
All right.
Yeah, for sure. And you've probably heard us talk about non-starchy vegetables versus starchy vegetables. And so the greens are a non-starchy vegetable, and it's because they're high in nutrients, but very, very low in carbohydrates, so very low in starch. And they're also very low in calories. So when you hear us say increase your intake of non-starchy vegetables, it's these types of vegetables we're talking about. And your red peppers would fall in that. The fennel would fall into that. Let's see, what else? Green beans, radishes. We could go on and on, but that's kind of the difference. In our next recipe, we're going to be using both. So we'll talk a little bit more about the starchy vegetables there. But I see my favorites coming out here: lemon and Parmesan
cheese, yeah. So the lemon, we're gonna go right at the end in here. This is a very seedy one. You don't want to. Sometimes you cut into no seeds. This would be way too many for me to catch. So we're gonna go seeds. Caught with a sieve.
My hand isn't so strong, so
you can use a little technique as a fork, and you just put it right in the middle. The fork, everyone, a fork, and you just squeeze it around the fork.
I've started doing that. It's much easier.
Much easier.
I've tried to do Jeremy's technique, but it's like, nope. My hands are not strong.
Yeah. So
my hand grip strength. I guess I need to work on that, right?
We'll add as much as you want to taste. A full lemon for this size pot is good. If you're doing a smaller batch, I can go to taste, but I think half of them will be fine. But again, right at the end, right before serving, just to retain that sort of freshness from lemon.
And are you going to put the Parmesan there or in the plate? Okay, because I was just going to move the...
Yeah.
I've learned how to move the remote.
Yes, we're both learning. All right, I'm ready to play.
Oh, you're coming here? Or should I
come here?
Okay. I'm all excited. I really want to touch the remote.
Use it. Go for it.
Number 3, right? That brings us. Oh, see.
We'll go to number 2 if you don't
Go to
mind.
number 2. Okay.
Follow me. There we go.
There we go. I didn't follow you.
There we go. And then just a little bit of that. You can use Parmigiano, or you can use a little pecorino. Just a little touch of that sharp cheese. A little bit goes a long way.
Is your mouth watering in
On
here?
top.
Yeah, mine is.
And that is our serruzzu, our version of it, a recipe in one.
Great. Oh,